I'm going to say a bit about what I do. I don't actually ground what I do in terms of specific theories or strategies, some ideas that I have. But one of the approaches that I generally take to teaching is that I'm used to what I do. I've been doing it for 20 years, but every class is a different experience. So I begin with, I wonder, will this work this time in this space? And try to think about that as I engage my students. I'm a sociologist by training. Almost all of my research is on African Americans and the urban experience. About 80% of my teaching is on African Americans and the urban experience. So issues of privilege, difference, they're right there. Right? They're there as I walk into the room, a black man teaching about black people. And so I operate from the perspective of there's nothing to hide, there's nothing to sort of put in the background. We will get on with the business of trying to deal with some difficult topics. And I say, not necessarily in the first day or even in the first couple of weeks, but at some point early in the class that while ideally I would love all of my students to love each other when it's all said and done, at base level my objective is to get you to think more critically about that which you think you already understand. That may mean coming to find someone else in the room as less appealing, less pleasing. But I say, everything we're talking about in this class is connected to somebody in the world trying to kill somebody. So it would make sense that in our space, we might find a little bit of difficulty, we might find a little bit of challenge. It's my job to create a safe enough space to engage these issues, but I will not lie to you and say you will love each other when the class is done. You may come to dislike each other, but I want you to respect the ideas that you're trying to promote, learn how to promote them in a healthy way, and understand that that's a step ahead of what's going on out there, where again, folks are doing terrible things to each other around difference. So given that, what do I try to do at a general level? My approach to students is to try to get them to understand the unfamiliar by drawing them into the familiar. And so one of the things I do around teaching about the urban experience is I will talk about public housing in urban America. And half, maybe 2/3 of the folks in the room have some idea of public housing as that weird kind of living that some unusual people have experienced that's nothing like what I've encountered. And the analogy I make is the dormitory. And we talk about what it means to organize life in the dorms. What it means to get along with people that are too loud down the hall, that are messy upstairs, that do whatever they do, that connects with, in some way resembles, the tensions that people experience in trying to live in public housing. But then we also talk about the different kinds of people in the dormitory versus public housing. Who's got resources, who has identities that they can change. You can be the messy college student today on Wall Street tomorrow. Right? Do public housing residents have the capacity to lose how they're framed in the context in which they live? So we play with difference and similarity. And the point is to get people to think about where they are, quite literally, where you are on campus, where you are in terms of your life when class is over, in comparison to the people that I teach about. And then try to highlight how one's standing in a position of privilege. Even those that may come from those backgrounds are in a space to think about that, to study it, to reflect, right? They're just not simply engaging it because they're here at Michigan. So there are ways of trying to get them to think differently as well. Right? And some other things that I do, at some point in most of my classes, I ask students to write or tell stories about coming to Michigan. And sometimes I ask them to craft them around some issue or concern that we're dealing with, right? Whether it's mentoring in low-income communities or social support, and I'll ask them to just sort of, document some experience, some aspect of their lives that connect to the theme. And the brave folks that want to read what they've written, sometimes we do it in small groups so that the less brave can still share. We talk about what the content of these stories are, right? So some of the basic examples when I've asked people to write about how they came to Michigan. Well, I went to the country club with grandparents, and the country club. Who else had the country club experience as an entree to Michigan? For some folks, it's just a brochure, right? For somebody walking down a hall of a high school, that's this place meant on, right? And so there are ways in which, again, we take the intimate, that which people have lived, that which seems so taken for granted or commonsensical to them that they don't have to think about it, and put them in a moment where they think about it. What does it mean to get to Michigan through some venue that's foreign or unfamiliar or not even imaginable for other folks? Mm-hmm. And so I try to use that technique again and again. When we talk, and I teach an awful lot about black men. My research is primarily on black men in the urban experience. The benefit of being at Michigan is that you can draw from athletics. Right? Mm-hmm. Think about black bodies on campus. What does it mean for 5 black football players to walk to the diag versus walk down your neighborhood? Right? Could be the same bodies. Mm-hmm. Be dressed the same way. What does it mean for them to be in that other space? How would you read them there? Right? And again, getting people to think about what they literally do at Michigan and how that might create different moments, right? Different responses someplace else. So again, the consistency is trying to get people to think about themselves, their actions, their responses, their experiences as a basis to rethink, to perhaps better understand some other people and some other place, right? Some other moment. I also inject my own body. Right? And I'm sensitive to the remarks just made about what challenges exist for folks of color in teaching, right? And I face those challenges. Right? But I can minimize or circumvent some of them by being a male. And as I was sitting here, quite literally sitting here, I was thinking, I almost never teach undergraduates from the point of sitting. Right? There's something that gives me power and control and efficacy by standing, or if I'm sitting on the desk. But I never teach undergraduates in position. And at some point in the class, I'll talk about that. Right? How are you all making sense of my body? A little larger than the average male. Right? And what does it mean? What are you letting me get away with that somebody else couldn't? Right? And again, putting my experience in as an opportunity for them to reflect, to think. Right? So I think one of the benefits of being a sociologist is it's very easy to draw upon the contemporary. Stuff happens all the time that I can say this matters for what we're trying to do today. Right? I can draw upon their bodies, my own body. Right? So I get that there's a certain kind of disciplinary advantage that I have in what I do. I think it means for the rest of us, what might we have that's advantageous, what might we not be able to work with, even where we are. But I take seriously, what does it mean to be a sociologist? Trying to confront and engage people. Right? And the last thing I do, when conversations don't unfold, in fact, several years ago I was teaching a class on social identity and we were talking about whiteness. Well, actually, we weren't talking about whiteness, which was part of the problem. We didn't have anything to say. And so I asked every student, just take a sheet of paper, right? Don't put your name on it anonymously, just write a few sentences. What's the problem with the conversation right now on white identity? Collected the papers, gave them back to people. I said, I already got something to say. It won't be what you want to say, but you'll be speaking on behalf of your classmates. And a rich array of comments from folks that said, well, white folks are all racist and can't admit it, to some people saying, or some comments that were read indicating that I'm struggling. I think there's more to me as a white person than being a racist, but I don't know what it is and how to make it become manifest in this classroom conversation and life more generally. So we had 40 or 50 reactions. That was done quite literally in a safe space. Right? But it gave us a space to say, we know folks in the world think this way, because you will do. We don't have to personalize it. We don't know what John or Jane thinks. But let's work with this now and see what does this mean for today about whiteness more generally, how we think about how folks think and feel. That may not always be articulated. I'll hold it right there. I look forward to the conversation.